So what inspired you to get out there and take part in the action itself and document it?
Well, it all started. I'm an avid Documentary Now watcher because it's free and independent journalism. And Amy Goodman and her crew were at Standing Rock and from the very beginning and filmed some of the oil goons attacking Native Americans with dogs. And I don't know if you're familiar with that footage, but it was really shocking. And then as I got kind of more attuned to what was happening, it just seemed really outrageous. And as an image maker, as a filmmaker, the juxtaposition, it was, Native American grandmas with S.E.J against these giant police officers with SWAT gear and, high powered rifles. And I mean, it was just, it was crazy, right?
Now, did individuals willingly come up to you to share their story, or did you have to entice the story out of them by going up and introducing yourself and explaining what you were there for?
Right. That was later, but it's kind of a funny story because at the beginning of the week, the media people said, okay, we've given you permission to use your camera, but of course you can't film anybody without their permission. You can't film children. You can't film the sacred fire or any of the elders. So I'm kind of like, okay, I agree, but that's not really much of a video. And so one day I was near the sacred fire, which is kind of their meeting place for the elders and the warriors, and a call came up that Dapple was coming through the hillside or over the hillside, and they mobilized. Everybody jumped into their vehicles and took off out of camp. And one of the elders, one of the chiefs, looks at me. I have my little badge, and she says, "Media, go!" And I literally jumped in the back of a pickup truck and just go take off across the prairie.
So what would you like viewers of your film to take away about oil companies and the oil industry?
Yeah, well, it's really the most harmful industry on the planet. We go to these wars in the Middle East to steal oil. Millions of Iraqis and Afghanis have died, not to mention everyone who's displaced and ruined in the Middle East. They get billions in subsidies a year. I think about 30 billion in subsidies. They're polluting the air and the land. The global South, they just ran roughshod over the indigenous people down there. So it really is a modern day evil. And the sooner they're gone, the better.
What would you like viewers of your film to take away about the folks at Standing Rock, not only with their protest, but as a people and a native?
Once I kind of established myself and it was clear that I was there sincerely trying to help, I probably have never felt more comfortable in a group setting in my life. There was no pretense, there was no drama. Everyone was there with a common cause to help. And what occurred to me when I was there, that everyone was working, but nobody had a job. So let's say I like horses, so I would attend to the horses. He would be a teacher. You would be in the health tent. Whatever your passion, your aptitude, you would do that in camp. Nobody would ask you, you would just do it. And it all kind of fell into place. People cleaned the toilets, people were cooking, there were warriors, there was security. And I just found that amazing. Because as white Westerners, we're taught that it has to be a structure and a hierarchy, and you have to have a leader, and he or she tells everyone what to do, and it's not like that.
Right.
I
think we have the mentality of every man for himself, and this just stands as a testament to human beings that when we come together, amazing things can happen.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And there's just a short clip in the film, but there's also a section for the Two Spirits people. There was a camp, and the native cultures totally accept uh, homosexuality and other sexualities or identities. And I just found that really, really wonderful that again, in Western society, there's still a stigma, there's still bias, but there, it wasn't a problem. They were considered really special because they had these two sides to their personality, the male and the female.
Right. As a sexuality studies minor, we're often taught about this, that, you know, the white Western view of human beings has this negative look at anything considered different, where other cultures seemingly embrace it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go too far in America to see, a lot of bias and brutality against people with other systems. Yeah.
Do you feel like you learned anything from being at Standing Rock? And if so, what was your biggest takeaway?
And this may be the second takeaway, but when I went, I flew into Bismarck, I rented a car, and I drove to camp. And I was a little early, and I thought, well, I'm going to kind of scout out the situation. It's about an hour drive from Bismarck, and the police were just crawling over the whole area because they were frantic. They were like, "Oh, these hippies, it's the world's going to end." And I kind of went in the back roads because I wanted to get some footage of the actual pipeline in the landscape. So, and I thought to myself, well, I'm going to put my camera under my coat and I'm just going to play dumb if somebody stops me. And I bet I was only there maybe half an hour before all these cruisers just started pursuing me from different angles because I was kind of up high. So they were coming from behind and over. So I just stopped and waited for them. And this police officer, one of the commanders, came over and we had a little chat, put my camera under the thing. And he says, "Oh, what are you here for?" I'm interested in Standing Rock, wanted to see what was going on, this and that. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, yeah." And I said, "Well, I got a little turned around on these back roads. Can you tell me where camp is?" And the police commander said, "I have no idea." So it was a bold-faced lie. And as a white suburban middle-aged man, I was always raised that the police are wonderful human beings and protect and serve. And just to have them lie to my face was really shocking to me. And I know it sounds silly for our friends of color that,
Right.
But
we have that privilege and understanding, like you said, to believe that the cops are trustworthy, and then to encounter that, it just gives you a position that you normally don't stand in.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it was really, it sounds like a small, silly thing, but it was really impacted me.
Do you have any plans, or do you remain in connection with anybody that you spoke with and plan to connect with them again?
Yeah, actually quite a few people I'm still in touch with. I have been working with some Dutch film producers in the documentary field, and I pitched an idea, the issue of murdered and missing Indigenous warriors. So if you're not aware of the situation, about 15 Indigenous people between Canada and the US disappear every day. Mm-hmm. Mostly into sex trafficking, sometimes just murdered and left on the side of the road. But it's truly an epidemic, and it's not getting any kind of press coverage. A little bit if you're paying attention.
Right.
Thing. So they like the idea, and so I've been reaching out to some of the people I met at Standing Rock to set up interviews to talk about the issues and the situations, and hopefully shed some more light on it.
And what is your view of Standing Rock today and the situation going on there today, as it's developed since you've last been there?
Sure. Well, it's been several years. The way I saw it, or I still see it, is that the authorities, the oil companies, the police, they stomped out the fire, but they spread the embers all over the world. So I'm really pleased and amazed when I take Standing with Standing Rock, the movie, to European film festivals and stay for a Q&A. The Europeans know what's going on. Like, they're asked really intelligent questions and informed questions, where the American audiences don't. It just shows the power of the propaganda in America.
What was like a misconception that you heard about the protest or the people there that you would like to debacle?
I got there a little early, so I stayed at an Airbnb
Mm,
first in outside of Bismarck, and then kind of went into camp hoping to stay in camp. I had met some people online, but it wasn't a done deal that I could stay in Standing Rock. So I stayed this white woman who was a journalist, and her perspective and all of her neighbors' perspective was that these were dangerous people that were armed and were going to take over their houses and their land and create all kinds of problems. And it was like, it was a completely different world. Like, so I was a little nervous when I went to camp, like, okay, what am I getting into? Is this really, some armed insurgents kind of thing? And it was the exact opposite. It was the most beautiful, wholesome, supportive group of people I've ever met in my life. And the whites that were surrounding the reservation were so misinformed and biased that I'm not shocked that the oil companies and the police force had so much influence on that.
is there anything else you would like to add about the film, or anything that you would like viewers to understand or take away after watching it?
Yes, I think if I were to boil it down to one thing, is there is another way. That we as humans, as civilization, we do much better when we cooperate and look out for each other and support each other than we will ever do when we conquer and dominate each other. And that's something I was reminded and taught in Standing Rock, that power to the people. The more inclusive you are, the more beautiful life becomes.